hyper personalized stuff. And when I say personalized, I'm not talking like AI personalization. That's bogus, like some sort of robot spits it out and everyone can tell. I mean, like writing handwritten letters in the mail to thank your best clients, or sending prospecting packages in the mail to get attention and to book meetings, sending personalized videos and recording video content for your clients that's just made for them. Like the creative stuff is what we're noticing with our players is making all the difference. And it's because it takes effort. And we have a
It
saying
takes a
that,
lot of effort.
and we have a saying, it's our principal slogan at Outbound HQ is effort is the hack.
And we're back for another episode of the Startup Hustle. Today, I'm very excited to be joined by the founder and CEO of the Outbound Game, Steve Claydon. He does a lot of cool stuff with sales and marketing, coaching, does all this different stuff. Very excited to talk today about outbound and sales and marketing, and I think some of the basics that a lot of entrepreneurs need to know, as well as his Outbound Game, which I think would be fun to talk about. He's tried to gamify this, try to get salespeople to actually do it. And a lot of salespeople don't want to do those activities. It's a lot of activities to do every day. I understand. I built CRM software where it's like, hey, my job was to create all these tasks for salespeople to do. I'm sure they hated me. Sorry, guys. Before we get started, I do want to remind everybody that today's episode is brought to you by Fullscale. If you need to hire software developers, we can help you build a dedicated team in the Philippines for less than half the cost you would normally pay. I have 300 employees working for about 70 other clients. You can check us out at fullscale.io. Steve, welcome to the show, man.
It's great to be here, Matt. I've been looking forward to this chat, based over in Australia, so it's an early start to line up time zones, but coffee's in hand and keen to have a chat, man.
Yeah. Well, give us a quick background about you. Obviously, you have a lot of experience in sales and marketing. Sounds like you've written a few books on the topics. Tell us just a little bit about your background.
Yeah, for sure. So I fell into the world of entrepreneurship after working in a automotive job. Actually, that's where I kind of cut my teeth in sales. Don't hold that against me, but hit number one in Australia in 2012 for Volkswagen. Got my free trip Germany business class, and I looked at my pay packet and then looked at where I was in my career, and I was like, okay, well, there's not a lot of room for growth here, and this business class is pretty sweet, and I can't afford them on like a Volkswagen sales wage, So that's when I leaped into the world of sales training and business and entrepreneurship, and hit the wall pretty hard in terms of earning no money in my first 6 months. Like I knew how to sell, but I didn't know much about business, and so really had to learn a lot quite quickly, and found into a niche of consulting and advising to a lot of manufacturing companies actually to start with, and figured out that getting creative in a tired industry of manufacturing sales really started to work. And so business started to scale. Been now consulting, advising to all different sort of scale up businesses for the last 10 years. And then about 4 years fell into software development after COVID just ruined our business model. And that was probably, as you would know, you're a bit of a pro in the tech world, but that was probably the steepest learning curve I've ever had to go through. But 4 years in, we're now scaling up and having a lot of fun. Applying gamification to sales team, exactly what you said, Matt. Like, how do you actually get people doing the outbound activity that makes a difference? And how do you keep people motivated on that journey without burning out? And so that's been the new field.
Yeah, let me tell you a little side story about this. So in my first company, Bin Solutions, we made software to help car dealers list their inventory online. So you put their pricing, the photos online. Nobody would ever do it. They're like, well, who's going to take photos of the cars? Who's going to upload them to the internet? Well, and of course, I would go to the dealership, the same car dealership that would say that they had no way to do this, and there'd be 4 salespeople playing cards on the showroom.
Yeah, man.
I'm like, don't you people realize, if you would just go take photos and do some merchandising and upload your inventory, maybe you would get more leads, maybe you would sell stuff, right? But if of course they're like, well, I don't get paid to do that. I don't get paid to take photos, right?
Exactly.
And the problem with sales and this kind of sales is it's just a lot of mundane activity that just has to happen over and over again. But that's the way most businesses are. Most businesses are not based on some kind of growth hack. They're based on the fundamental work that has to be done every single day. And that work actually works, and then you figure out how to scale that stuff, right? And this kind of outbound work is an example of that. And like nobody enjoys doing it. There's nothing magical or exciting about it, but it works if you do it and you do it every day, right?
Yeah, well, that's what we've found, Matt. Like the entire sales world is mostly incentivized through lag measures, right? The thing that happens at the end of the day when they close a deal, when they sell a car, and that's normally how the whole world works. Because it's pretty simple to incentivize that, right? Like sell that amount of stuff, I'll give you that amount of cash or commission. Sweet. The problem is what you exactly said. There's a massive gap between getting a team to realize, hey, if you start taking these photos, this is going to help you make more sales. Like most people are
Yeah.
disconnected from that. So the outbound game is very much like that. We asked ourselves one question, which was, where on planet Earth is motivation not a problem? And we figured out was the arcade. Like there is no motivation issue in the arcade. Everyone's going nuts, all different ages, playing the games, collecting the tokens, trying to get their bonus multipliers to go to the reward kiosk at the end to cash out their coins or tokens for, a crappy basketball hoop or something. And so we're like, why don't we just apply that to the business world? Why don't we incentivize those car salespeople to take photos, gamify it, give them bonus multipliers if they do a certain amount of them within a week, and then they can cash out those coins for money, commissions, time off, or literal prizes. And lo and behold, it started to work, particularly for the younger generation starting to come through as well, who have got completely different motivation strategies
Right.
than the other. So
So
there's
let
a disconnect.
me ask you this. You talk about the leading indicators versus the lagging indicators. So for those who are not super familiar with what that means, can you explain that and give us a good example of leading versus lag?
Yeah, I love it. So in sales, the classic lag measure, so lag normally just simply means comes after the fact. So sales actually closed won deals is what we'd consider a lag measure. It happens at the end of a long line of other things. The lead measures are those activities that actually drive you towards that lag measure. Classic example, Matt, that I like to help people realize is in sales, you actually have no control over whether your client gives you money. No control. Yet a lot of salespeople think they do. But when you're shooting a basketball, right, have you got control over where you place your feet? Sure. How far you bend your knees? Yeah. How high you put your elbow and you flick your wrist? Yeah. You got control over all of that. But as soon as that ball leaves your fingertips, how much control do you have over the basketball?
Not a
None.
lot.
Literally none. It's gone. And no matter
None.
how much, when I'm playing golf and I'm shouting at my ball to go somewhere else in the air, it doesn't do it. It's done at that point. And so we're really on a mission to help people change their focus away from lag measures as the primary thing that they spend all their time focusing on to actually like, what can you do? What can you do with your knees and your elbow and your wrist,
Right.
metaphorically, that get you to the result and focus on that and drive that? The lag measures will take care of themselves. The ball will go in.
So, but when it comes to sales, what can they control? Is it just sending more emails? Like what making more phone calls? Like what can they do?
Well, they're the basics, right? I call them the BAUs, the business as usual. And exactly what you said. In sales, in entrepreneurship, there's a bunch of mundane shit that you just have to do over and over again, consistently over a long period of time to get a result, right? That's phone and email. But that's not your job. Like everyone does phone and email. Yes, you should be doing them at scale, but like the lead measures we're noticing that are actually making a difference in people's sales cycles is the creative stuff and the hyper personalized stuff. And when I say personalized, I'm not talking like AI personalization. That's bogus, like some sort of robot spits it out and everyone can tell. I mean, like writing handwritten letters in the mail to thank your best clients, or sending prospecting packages in the mail to get attention and to book meetings, sending personalized videos and recording video content for your clients that's just made for them. Like the creative stuff is what we're noticing with our players is making all the difference. And it's because it takes effort. And we have a
It
saying
takes a
that,
lot of effort.
and we have a saying, it's our principal slogan at Outbound HQ is effort is the hack. If you're
Yeah.
running a hack, effort is the hack. No one wants to do it. So if you're the only one doing it, you're all of a sudden going to stand out in a really beautiful way, right? Um,
I'm writing this down. That's a great quote. Because I think as entrepreneurs and leaders, we're always looking for some growth hack, right? Like, I'm just going to join this Facebook group and I'm going to post something and 1,000 people are going to sign up, right? Like, everybody's looking for this, like, weird little growth hack thing or whatever. But the effort is the hack. Like you're 100% right.
Well, you just look at nature. Like, find me anything in nature that goes from being a baby to a full-grown elephant in like some magical fast track week thing. Like, nothing in nature has a growth hack. Yeah, you might be able to speed up its growth and development, but you can't just go from like baby to full grown. The journey of growth is what the whole point of entrepreneurship and sales is all about. It's figuring out how you can do that without more pain. That's ideally the goal. But
So
little but
so
effort, going back to the effort is the hack. It takes pain at the start to do things that require effort. It's hard to do your first personalized video. It's hard to edit your first video in a way that's kind of pretty appealing to the YouTube audience. Like put a bit more effort into the edit, like put some captions on that thing and put some music into it and like, put some effort into it. It's hard at the start until you realize that you get a disproportionate outcome from that effort. And then all of a sudden it's like, this is the point. This is the thing that's going to make me grow faster.
so tell me this. You work with a lot of people that do outbound, people using your game, all this different stuff. Give me a short list of things. Like if you're doing this right now today, it's probably not the right things to do. Like you should probably stop doing these things. What does that list look like? And then I want to ask you the opposite of that. But like, what are the wrong things that people are probably doing right now?
I call it the 1-2 sequence where it's phone call, email, phone call, email, phone call, email. Oh, they didn't respond to the email? Send another email. Oh, they didn't get back to my call? Call them again. Like it's this monotonous 1-2 step sequence where they believe the only things that they have at their disposal is phone and email, and that's all you should do over and over again. The problem is the last stat I look is like people are receiving like 120 emails a day and they're getting multiple phone calls a day that they're not wanting to pick up anymore. If that's your primary outbound strategy is just phone and email, like you're gonna probably find it to be a pretty hard time. That's what I would suggest to stop doing is just thinking that they're the only two things that you should be doing.
But can those things work? Like if you just do those two, can they work?
If research is done, and that's the thing that takes effort that nobody takes time to do, is like if you actually spend time actively your buyer, the connected people within that buyer's world, their backs, their history, some unique insight that takes time to actually discover about them. But if you could share that in an opening call or you could share that in an opening email, they absolutely work. The problem I often see is research takes effort, so they just dive straight into a call or they just fire out a blanket email, hoping that they get some sort of response.
But the good news is we replaced all of that with AI now, right?
And now what we have is one salesperson working for a billion shins, and everyone's like, "Hey, you sound similar to that other guy that just messaged me. Hey, you sound like LinkedIn comments, man. I know you're big on LinkedIn. Like
Oh
AI
yeah.
generated LinkedIn comments, I think would have to be the worst invention of the last 5 years. Like it is so painful to watch and see these generic, like 47 people comment on a post and it's all the same sort of things, just
Yeah.
maybe slightly adjusted. It's like, guys, like, come on, this is not sales. This is not, that's a hack and it's a bad one. So all of that type of stuff, really what I'm trying to say here is like all of the blanket generic sales guff that everyone is using, you should stop doing it.
Well, so at full scale, we tried doing outbound email for a little while, and I think we got, I don't know, I want to say less than 5 to 10 leads ever from it.
Yep.
And we weren't doing it right. I'd be the first one to say I wasn't doing it right. And this was before I got super involved with the company over the last 6 months. This was like a year ago. But we were sending the same really terrible email to like thousands of people. And of course, nobody replied.
Yeah.
So I it's got to be hyper personalized. And I agree with you. But the problem is, how do you actually do that? Like, because, so for example, at full scale, if we're selling to other startup founders, I could go to their website, I could look at their LinkedIn profile, I could probably come up with some like really creative, witty thing to send to them and relate to them or whatever, right? I could probably do that. But if I hire just some random SDR, salesperson or whatever to do that, they are not going to be able to do that, probably. Like,
Yep.
how do you overcome that?
Yeah, I think, and I'm a one trick pony. I'm a really big Daniel Priestley fan. I don't know if you've heard of Daniel Priestley, but he's a gun. And he's written a book called 24 Assets. It's something that I don't know if you've ever come across those books that just like perfectly language all the stuff that you're already kind of doing, but just like putting it into a
Yeah,
framework. Like, aha, now I understand why it works. I've always been a guy that just tries to develop a lot of assets, digital assets, tools, widgets, whatever it may be, that is actually valuable for the audience that I'm going to. And I give it all away for free. And then I outbound the inbound. And most people, most businesses that we work with, they don't have enough assets that the market actually finds valuable. And I'm not talking like
right.
a little crappy white paper that takes you 15 seconds to punch out of ChatGPT. No one finds that valuable. I mean, like, Matt, I would love to know on a one page, infographic slash process, you scaling a 300-person team in tech, like the core principles of how you've actually done that, or a playbook. Like,
Right.
start documenting how you're actually doing things and then develop it as a playbook. I ended up doing that over 10 years. It's around here somewhere. It's a 600-page slide deck. And on LinkedIn the other day, I was just like, hey, I'm giving my life's work away for free, carefully curated over 10 years, 630 pages of principles and scripts and models that I've found valuable. Not just mine, but what I've curated from the world. Put it on LinkedIn, got 16,500 comments. Just went, it just went insane.
Wow.
And
16,000 comments?
16,500 comments. Um,
Wow.
and so here's the weird, going back to effort is the hack. I said to me and my team, I said, we're not going to use any AI tools to help get this out to anyone. Let's individually message every single person and then hook them up with the playbook. It ended up taking me about 60 hours. And I was just doing it from like 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. and then 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And I eventually got to a point where I was just like, this is way too much. But anyway, I went through every single comment and I personally messaged them all, hooked them up with the playbook. And the number one thing that they kept coming back with was like, bro, you're not joking. Like, this is 630 slides of like actual quality stuff. They're just like, what are you doing? Like, this is nuts. And it was the moment I realized like that was the number one asset that I could give away. Now it's just flooded outbound with so many leads and signups to our free platform and all this sort of stuff. But it was that outbounding the inbound. And I think most businesses don't have those assets, the digital assets, the content, the things that actually get people into the ecosystem so that you can do some outbound with some personalization even based on the
Right.
signals that brought them in to begin with.
Well, we're actually working on something similar to this at Fullscale. Again, you can check us out at fullscale.io if you're looking to hire developers. But it's like, how do you identify warm leads from a lot of different ways, right? Like somebody who subscribes to your newsletter, they engage with your LinkedIn content, they, go to your website and do this thing or that thing, like sort of warm leads from, a few different ways. And so that kind of creates inbound. To some degree, that creates some inbound. But to your point, like there's this new, I don't know if this would be a new trend. It's like outbound to inbound, right? I don't think this
Yeah.
is really new, but it's like identifying those warm opportunities and then going outbound only after those specific warm opportunities. That's
Yeah.
not a new trend, right? People have been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, I think they've been doing it a long time. I think maybe what's somewhat new about it is just our ability to make high quality digital assets quick and cheaply if you've got the IP to start putting into it, right? And I think that's the difference is the businesses that really nail this are the ones that understand that their IP is actually really valuable. No matter what business you're in, you've got IP, you've got recipes. Starting to actually put this into digital assets that other people find valuable is I think the way that you get really strong signals and then you can do outbound to a much warmer audience instead of doing this
Right.
cold blanket thing. Yeah, there'd be
So
so
we
much
talked earlier about what not to do and what does work. And then I wanted to ask you about what does work, but I think we've already been talking about that. It's personalization, it's talking to warmly. Well, what other tips do you have around what you should be doing?
yeah, we're kind of two trick ponies on this. I wrote a book called The Opposite Effect, which kind of simply is if you ever want to stand out in a crowded audience, find what everyone is doing and go in the exact opposite direction. So I kind of normally overlay that with how innovation happens. There's early adopters, there's innovators, there's laggards, there's people doing it old school. And then there's this really noisy middle, which is what normally everyone gets attracted to because everyone is doing it. So there's two areas I really focus on. New school, which is somewhat new school. In Australia, it's definitely new school. In the US, not so new school. But the idea of really high quality personalized videos being sent to an
Okay.
audience, whether they're screen share videos or what I actually think is an emerging trend for people going for really large accounts is doing what I call the Dear Casey Neistat. Have you ever seen that YouTube video, Dear Casey Neistat?
No, haven't seen that one.
Check it out. It's the CEO of Patreon creating a video for Casey Neistat that says Dear Casey Neistat, kind of pitching an idea to him. And it's like a
Okay.
full blown, fully edited, like really amazingly put together video, which is essentially a sales pitch video.
Yeah.
I actually think there's an emerging trend for people going for large accounts to hire a media team or have an media team internally and creating a full scale, fully edited YouTube style vlog, really, really gun edit video made just for one person. I think that would absolutely work for whale sized accounts. So that's what I'm big on: video content, personalized video content. The other side, though, is what we call lumpy mail, which is hand literal. I've got these stacks of cards here that I've always got, just handwritten notes packaged together with something personalized for a particular prospect or a warm inbound, sending it in the mail to them with a licked stamp. And it works an absolute treat because most people, whenever they're getting stuff in the mail, it's a bill, it's the rates they have to pay, whatever it may be. They see a package turned up with a licked stamp, texter written on the front with their
Yeah.
name. It just like it gives them an almost a nostalgic experience that they probably haven't had for a very long time, and that works an absolute treat for booking meetings. We've found if the lead is warm enough, if they've given us enough signals through their asset downloads or whatever it may be, and then we do a lumpy mail
Right.
package, we have a huge conversion on book meetings on that.
Yeah, I'll never forget a few years ago, I had a Google Cloud was trying to get me to be a customer, and I was a big Microsoft Azure customer. They actually sent me a Chromebook.
Cool.
They actually sent me a Chromebook, and then there was some other weird vendor. I don't remember who it was. They sent me something in a package like that, and then you open it up, and it was like a video screen, and it had like a video presentation. Like you open it up, and like a video starts playing. It was like the weirdest thing ever. But I never
Yeah.
forgot it, although I forgot who they were.
Yeah, that's the thing is the brain is always looking for anomalies, right? Like, and
Yeah.
so if you've got 500 emails over the last 4 days, you're gonna forget all of them, but you can remember that thing from 4 years ago when that random real estate agent sent you that thing in the mail. Like that's the point. Is it takes effort, but stands out, and that's the key.
So one of the other things you mentioned before we started recording is a lot of teams, the mistake that they're making is that they're doing too much. And so what do you mean by that when you say that the teams are doing too much?
Yeah, we're my business partner Darcy has this saying that the current generation is Homo distractus. We are constantly being distracted by a million different things, and because of that, we try and do too many things half-assed, essentially, and not
Okay.
long enough. And so we actually did this with some of our data in the outbound game. We used to set up games with 12 actions, and we noticed there was way too many. They never did all 12.
Like
Then
a
we,
12 steps, like phone
yeah,
call, email,
yeah,
LinkedIn, whatever, 12 steps. Okay.
12 different actions, and they can customize it so they could pick any 12, but like 12 actions didn't work. Absolute failure. Then we're like, okay, let's go the other end. Let's do 3 actions. What we found is the team got bored. So then we tried 5 actions, and it was like ding, ding, ding. It was like this magic number. We were testing between 5 and 7, 5 and 7, 5 and 7. And it turned out that human beings can't do much more than 5 things at once. And if they do those 5 things, there's enough diversity that it gets creative, but it's also simple enough that they can just absolutely nail that. And we measure that versus goal completion. So if they do these 5 things at scale, how likely are they to hit their goal? And that's the
Okay.
magic number. So if you can actually boil down and reverse engineer your goal, kind of like what we are talking about before with lag and lead measures, start with the lag measure. I want to make $1 million in sales this year. Reverse engineer it by asking yourself if you could only do 5 things, and nothing but these 5 things, what would be the top 5 activities you would take to hit that $1 million goal? That's where people should be playing. And we're actually noticing the data is trending down to 4 over the last 12 months. Make of that what you will. But it's really, you can't be doing much more than that. And if you are, you'll be feeling like you're spread thin and you won't be executing well enough on those.
Well, when you say 4 things, you're talking about a single sequence that only has 4 steps in the sequence, like day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4? Or
Not
what
so
do you
much,
mean exactly?
not so much sequences, more repeatable lead measure activities. So you might say, you know what, I get you, Steve. I'm going to be an absolute gun when it comes to sending personalized videos. That might be one of your
Okay.
primary 4. And then the other one might be, yeah, totally get it. I'm also going to start sending lumpy mail. I'm going to write that as a personalized lumpy mail strategy. And then you might pick out outbound calls and then like posting on LinkedIn. That might be
All
your
right.
4. So it's not so much a
Okay.
sequence, it's more so the repeatable day in, day out
It's not trying to
activity.
do everything.
Exactly, yeah. It's just like, I'm going to nail these 4 things. Like, if for you in your sales and marketing, it could be like podcast recording, editing shorts, direct personal LinkedIn messages to book guests, and booking meetings, face-to-face meetings, catching up with people in real life. If you
Well,
just did those 4, you'll nail it.
I think one of the struggles as an entrepreneur is you're always trying to figure out like, well, how do I sell our service, our product to everyone, right? Where like using Full Scale as an example, we only have like 60 or 70 customers. How do I find like 10 more? I'm not trying to find, I don't need to find thousands more, right? So I
Exactly.
would probably be better off focused on quality, not quantity, right? How do I go the extra mile for 100 or 500 potential customers than trying to like hope and spray like thousands of them, right? Like, but as entrepreneurs, we're always focused on the like the bigger opportunity. We're never focused on like, well, how do I just win 10 customers? Or like, how do I win 1,000? I want all 1,000, right? Like we struggle with that.
100%. And I think it's, again, we get in that growth hacking mindset of like, it'd be faster if I get 1,000 people in my pipeline. It's like, no, you'll probably cook 1,000 leads because you can't service them all well enough. I'm a big believer in going narrow and deep instead of wide and shallow. And I think that's the best mindset to take as an entrepreneurship is narrow and deep, not wide and shallow.
One of the quotes that you mentioned earlier, I really loved. You said that sales is the primary oxygen for entrepreneurship. Tell me
Yeah.
more about that.
Yeah, well, at my core, I love entrepreneurship. I love creativity. I love that we as human beings can like imagine something and then over the course of time turn that into an actual reality. Like that just, it gives me such a buzz that we're capable of doing that. And I meet entrepreneurs that are really creative, really visionary, like always thinking about the future, but suck at the day to day of just making money. And so as an entrepreneur, I love entrepreneurship second, but when I realized that sales is the primary oxygen for entrepreneurship, you need to make sales to keep the whole thing alive and breathing. You very quickly realize that, like, man, if you're an entrepreneur, yeah, you can be visionary, you can be thinking about the future. Fall in love with sales as well, because that's the primary thing that keeps you creative and keeps you thinking about the next. We've seen that many failed startups, right? I'm sure you've seen them as well. Like started out really excited, big, didn't want to get down into the day to day of making calls and booking meetings and doing discoveries. That was kind of below them. And lo and behold, they run out of cash. Lo and behold, they don't make sales and then they can't be entrepreneurs anymore. So it is the primary oxygen and it's what we should all love as entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and I think the problem is for a lot of entrepreneurs, it starts with the problem, right? You're like, I found this problem, I couldn't find a solution to it. So now I've decided, you know what? I'm going to start a business and see if I can solve this problem for other people. And it could be you're like, hey, I'm more of an inventor. Like, I invented this thing, I found this problem, but I don't really know how to run a business, or I don't know how to do sales, or I don't like doing sales, right? And a lot of founders end up struggling and failing because of that, because they just don't really like doing sales. They like the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain, or the inventor. Like they like building stuff. They're the wizard in the lab, whatever you want to say. They don't like doing sales, and they don't like that part of it. And I actually wrote in my newsletter last week. If you guys don't subscribe to my newsletter, you can go to startuphustle.xyz, go to newsletter and sign up, about how the founder's first job is sales. It
Yeah.
almost doesn't really matter what kind of company it is. The founder's first job is sales because
Yeah.
it requires sales to hire people, get the first customer, find a co-founder, whatever it is. It's all sales. And it's critical. And I talk about this all the time. And probably people probably think I'm weird because, like, Matt, your background is a software developer. Why are you talking about sales? Because I know it is the primary oxygen for entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Steve told
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. I love it, man. I like what you said there as an inventor. And it potentially is because they might have a warped view on what sales really is. Maybe they have seen sales as this money hungry, get to the yes, do whatever it takes mindset, where really sales at its core is investigation, right? Like it's building business cases. It's understanding how the other person really truly works.
It's
So as an inventor, like
it's
it's the best research you can ever do.
Yeah, but it's the opposite personality of most engineers, right? Like most
100%.
engineers would be rather hiding in the basement somewhere, writing, reading a 1,000-page spec about how something works, or reading some patent documentation, or some other crap that none of the rest of us would rather do. But they're
Yeah.
just very logical, and it's just not their personality, right? They're usually very introverted, very logical, and of course, not everybody's this way. But a lot of the engineering types are that way, and they don't like sales. Some absolutely hate it, right?
Yeah.
So if they make some big discovery, patent this thing, build a business around this thing, they're going to struggle if they don't have like a co-founder or business partners or whatever that can help them sell it. So
Yeah. And I think that's true. Like it's definitely key to, I'd love to hear your story around this, but like when you're an entrepreneur and you're in startup, you have to wear every hat pretty much. You have to learn enough about finance, you have to learn enough about the law, you have to learn enough about business structures, you have to learn about sales, you have to learn about marketing, you have to learn about operations, you have to learn about bookkeeping, you have to learn about pretty much everything. I think the exciting part of growing a business is finding great people to come on your team that are strong in the areas that you're not. But again, you're probably not going to get to enough scale to hire other people unless you first start making some sales. It is just like there's no other way around it. You have to make sales.
actually, if you sign up for the newsletter, you get a little welcome email, and it says, "Hey, why is this called the Startup Hustle?" And I don't remember exactly what I put in there, but basically it talks. The hustle isn't about working 80 hours a week. That's not what the hustle is about. The hustle is about having to do whatever it takes to make your business work, which is all the things you just described, right? It's sales one day, it's marketing, it's product development, it's accounting, it's all the things, whatever it takes. And the challenge is, can you grow your business large enough to start to delegate some of those things?
Hmm. Hmm.
That's the challenge, right? Can you grow enough to delegate certain parts of that
Yeah.
you don't want to do?
And that's when business starts to get fun, I believe, is when you start to build a bit of a team and you get great people and you share ideas, and entrepreneurship isn't so lonely then, like it's an exciting part of business. And anyone that's in that, listening to this, that's in that real hustle mode, I'd just encourage you to keep going back to the vision, and keep going back to the why when you started this thing. Sometimes you get so bogged down in the detail that you lose sight of the vision and your why, your personal why that motivates you. And the primary encouragement I'd have for you is that if you don't quit, you can't really fail. You might pivot,
And that's
you might
true. A lot of
change
it's
your whole
time.
business model.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might completely
And
change, but if you don't quit, you can't fail.
there's also this mentality of you can play to win or you can play to not lose,
Mm,
right? And I think when you take the big VC money and you go that direction, you're playing to win.
mm,
And you can absolutely lose, but you're playing to win, right? Versus if you bootstrap and you take your time and you play the long game, you're sort of playing not to lose.
yeah,
And it's a different game. Does that make sense?
I love that. Yeah, I haven't heard of that before, but that very much feels true for us. Like we've bootstrapped, we've found ways to creatively continue to fund this development beast to now in a scale up phase. I used to be very much a play to win guy, but tell you what, man, it burnt me out. Like I fell in love with the game, fell out of love with the game because I was a play to win, I gotta make this work mentality. And I realized like I actually think the funner way to play the game is to play not to lose and find a thing that you
Yeah.
love doing every day and just be like,
Right.
sweet, I got 10 years of like challenge and fun and growth. now, and like I don't need to scale to this crazy exit. It's just like, sweet, I'm gonna enjoy the game. Like, what else am I gonna do? And I've really changed my mindset on that lately, Matt. So thanks for saying that. That's put it into a context for me. That's great.
So tell us a little more about the Outbound game. You mentioned before it's gamifies it for salespeople to do their activities. Give us a little more of the pitch of why people would want to use it.
Yeah, it's really going back to how this conversation started. You've got a sales team. You've probably got some activities that you know make a difference to your pipeline and your close rates. You're finding it hard to get the team to do that consistently. Or if you do have to do it as a leader, you feel like a Tony Robbins, motivational pitch one day to micromanaging and hitting them with a stick the next. And leaders don't love that. I've been there. It's not fun. So really what the outbound game does is it helps the team become self-motivated to do the activities because they get rewarded for every single activity that they complete. But the whole game is really structured in the bonus multipliers if they hit their number before the time runs out. There's a little clock that's
Okay.
always counting down. It says you got 12 hours, 46 minutes of your sprint. And let's say one of your goals was to send 50 personalized videos and they're sitting on 48 with a big chunk of bonus coins about to pay out, knowing that the whole clock resets to zero if they don't get those last two done before the 12 hours strikes out. All of a sudden you find people finding the self drive and motivation to get their last two done and hit their goals. Now, the whole game is built like the arcade. So the team accrue their coins in their digital wallet. The reward store opens when they're ahead of their goals. And then they can cash out
Okay.
the rewards for what actually motivates them: the new guitar, a pair of Air Jordans. They want to take their family on a holiday. They want more cash for a house deposit. They get to select and put the rewards into the reward store. We've just built the algorithm to take care of all the tricky numbers. And we're stoked, man. We've seen about $1.3 million paid out in rewards through our platform so
Oh
far.
wow.
And we love the emails from people saying, "Hey, I've always wanted this fishing kayak to take my son out on the lake and couldn't justify it, but played the game, smashed my goals. The company bought me the kayak,
Nice.
and here's a photo of me and Johnny out fishing." Like that gives me a buzz, bro. Like that's the fun part of sales and business is it can fuel a lifestyle. And so that's the premise. Plugs into your CRM, plugs into a bunch of other tools. So it just sort of automates the whole thing, but just yeah, turns your work into a bit of an arcade, really.
Awesome. Well, you can check that out at outbound.game. So as we wrap up the show, do you have any other final words of wisdom or tidbits for entrepreneurs out there when it comes to sales and marketing?
I would encourage you to run blitzes. I think blitzes are the best way to get over the whole procrastination, fear thing. If you've taken anything from this podcast and you're like, you know what, I'm going to do that. I'm going to put myself out there. I'm going to create some LinkedIn content. I'm going to record a video. I'm going to send some personalized videos. I'm going to send some lumpy mail. The number one thing you can do to actually get started instead of just having it as a cool idea that you did nothing with is blitz it. Get your buddies together, get your sales team together, get your co-founder together and say, all right, we're locking ourselves in a room on Wednesday. And for 8 hours, all we're doing is seeing how many letters we can write and send in the mail. We're going to see how many videos we can create and gamify it. And that's why we created a free version called Outbound Blitz, where you can run all of that for free and compress the time that you give yourself to do it. Lo and behold, you find you'll do 20 more videos than giving yourself 6 months to, record 20 videos. You just won't.
Yeah.
So
Just go
blitz
do
it.
it. Yeah.
Compress the time, give yourself a short amount of time to do it and go get started. And that's what we've found is the best way to actually get a bit of momentum happening in your business.
I love the focus. Like it's, hey, we're all going to get together. We're all going to do this thing. And we're all going to focus and go win. I love it.
Yeah.
It's a great tip. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. Again, this was Steve Claydon. You can check him out at outbound.game. We'll have a link in the show notes and stuff too. And Steve, thank you so much for being on the show. Again, reminder, if you need help with hiring software developers, check us out at fullscale.io. Make sure you check out the newsletter, startuphustle.xyz. You can hit newsletter. Putting out one or two good newsletter articles every week, highlighting cool stuff we learned from the podcast and from my background. So, Steve, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thanks, Matt. It was a legendary time. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
All right, thank you.